Welcome to A Cup of Happy. I'm your host, life coach, mom, and friend, Nicole James. I'm so glad you've joined me to talk about life and the journey from our past to our future as we navigate the present in order to create our very best life. So grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and let's chat over a cup of happy. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of A Cup of Happy. My name is Nicole James. Today, you are going to get to meet Rachel West. I love this conversation with her because the trauma that she deals with may not be one that we consider a big T trauma in the category of traumas when we're talking about things that people have overcome. But I guarantee you, there are so many people who have dealt with the things that she has dealt with, and the fact that she has decided to persevere and to pave her own path is super inspiring. And I hope that there will be people out there listening, just like you, who will find some motivation in her words. Her story is sure to connect with many of you. So here is my conversation with Rachel West. Hi, Rachel.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So I'm very excited that you joined me. So this has been a journey for this series. We are talking about traumas and difficult times, coming through them and creating beautiful lives afterwards. So tell me about, right now you're an entrepreneur.
Yes.
But that hasn't always been the case.
Correct.
And it wasn't always your dream.
No, exactly.
So tell me about your your career and how it started and kind of how it's gone from there.
Yeah, so it's definitely been a roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
I always had the dream of being a CMO in the top, I want to climb the ladder, I want to be the chief marketing officer, and I just want to be, nice penthouse office, those types of dreams. And I was working for a company that flat out told me that my dreams were invalid and that I would never become a CMO and I would never be able to climb the ladder. And, when I heard that, it's one of those things where you're like, I don't know if this is the best, opportunity for me, where I'm having this kind of pushback against literally my dreams. And when I would go into the corporate, HR, how are you doing every 6 months type of interview, they would be like, well, where do you see yourself in 3 or 4 years? And I would tell them, and then they'd be, they'd come back and say, well, might not be best at this position or in this company. And then compound it with a boss that was just, I was very fortunate. I was never bullied in high school or school in general. Mm-hmm. And it was a major lesson to realize that there were bullies outside of the classroom and that it just so happened to be my boss.
Wow.
And so the nitpicking of everything, I remember this one time I had delivered a presentation, and she was like, it's great, everything's good. So I had to do the next week. I sent her the file and I said, look, I've not designed this. I just want to get the information. Sent back, well, you need to get the design right first and then we'll talk about the information. And then, so this went back and forth. By the time I was supposed to give that presentation, I didn't have any information because it was the nitpicking of, well, this isn't on brand. This isn't on, these aren't our colors. And I'm like, I know. That's why I said it's not designed. And we need the information. Little things like that. I had to, anytime I contacted somebody, I had to write it down on a spreadsheet and say who they were, their email, what I contacted them about. Same with phones. It was micromanaging times 10. And it was just to a point where I was leaving work every day crying. Or I would have a panic attack in the middle of the day, and I'm not necessarily one to like to do that. And it was just an eye-opening experience. So through the midst of it all, I decided to go to HR. Mm-hmm. And because that's what they're there for, I thought.
Yeah.
And then I thought, you know, HR, they're supposed to help me. They're supposed to help figure this out. So I met with them, and HR pretty much said, well, we'll work with you. Yeah, we'll figure it out. So I had a lot of hope. I was like, this is it. This is the moment. We're going to figure this out. I had a meeting with my boss and the head of HR, you know, did some HR practice, like drawings, whatever you want to call them. And I thought, great, everything's good. We had a good week after that. We had better communication. She wasn't micromanaging, wasn't like, you know, was letting me do my job. Mm-hmm. Well, of course, that's changed after like 2 or 3 weeks once HR stopped looking at the situation. And I realized, I went back to HR and they were like, y'all just have to figure it out. Like, you need to, this is like relationships. You need to figure out how to do better and bring more into the relationship. And I'm like, why am I the one that has to be the leader in this position when I have a boss who's supposed to guide me, who's supposed to lead me, but instead I'm having to right now coach my boss on how to be a leader. And so it was like this whole twisted like story and image and everything. And so long story short, I ended up being fired from that job and that company. And I'm telling you, it was one of the craziest things because my boss literally stood over my desk as I was like cleaning up, like as I was, you know, taking my stuff away, putting it in boxes, she stood over me. And I'm like, that to me is the ultimate sign of not only disrespect, but just like the power that she was wanting to have over me and being like, I get to watch you leave. And so it escalated to the point where, and thank goodness I did this. This is my biggest advice to anybody that ever gets fired, is to make sure you get a dismissal letter stating why. So my dismissal letter said that I was fired because of my performance, which is hilarious because, you know, I was helping them, you know, have the biggest sales in record-breaking days. So, you know, fine. So I went and I applied for unemployment. Mm-hmm. My unemployment was denied. And I called the state and I said, I'm so sorry. I don't understand why I have been denied. And the state said, oh, well, that's because you were fired because of COVID. Like, you weren't following COVID rules or something. And that's why you got fired. And I said, well, that's hilarious because in my dismissal talk, without HR, by the way, HR was not in the room for that. And with my dismissal letter, it says that it was my performance. So that's confusing on why they would now lie to the state and say that it was because of COVID. So not only at this point was my ego just destroyed, because getting fired is such a hit to the ego. I don't care what you say. And that's not a bad thing. That just, you know, and so through that, I was also getting all like just rage, just pure rage at the fact that not only did this company do me wrong, but now they're also lying to the government and also saying that I should not be allowed to get unemployment. And they're basically, you know, making sure they're okay, hiding their side of the story. So, I mean, I remember that phone call with the unemployment officer, and I was almost in tears because I said, I don't know what to do. Do I get a lawyer? Do I not get a lawyer? Like, does this even matter? Mm-hmm. And at that point, I really did feel like I didn't have a voice because I didn't know what to say. I didn't know who to go to. I didn't have any resources to really say, like, if this happens, yes, go get a lawyer. If this, you know... And of course, I just had to go off of what the resource officer was telling me, and she was just like, honestly, you really couldn't do anything with it. Yeah. So when you hear that, it's so disheartening because I've been wronged, And now in the government's eyes, I like don't follow COVID procedures, which I'm like, like I do. I'm like, I'm vaxxed and everything. So, you know, it was so hard to accept these lies and to accept that all of this was on my person. So I will not lie. Those first few months were just unbearable. I remember I came home from packing up. And luckily my husband, he was working like a late shift, so he was at home, and like he just stayed with me all day and just comforted me. And you know, my grandparents did the same. My dad was there, and it was one of those things where I was so thankful I had a support system, because they know what I can do. And it was like I don't even know what this would be called, but it was like outside imposter syndrome, where it was like everybody else thinks I can't do this, so maybe I can't do it, you know? And so it was that internal fighting. It was like internal and external fighting, basically. And it was awful. And I had friends reaching out to me from the company being like, everybody was shocked because it was so unexpected. You know, and I was like, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm really good at what I do. And so like that was literally like you could see it through the analytics. And so the fact that it was basically because my boss, like, you know, just wanted one last, you know, knife in the back, basically. And, you know, it was so hard. It was so hard to pick up and really get out of bed because, you know, I went from having a decent salary, having money flow in, but of course I was like, you know, bawling my eyes out every day.
Right.
To having absolutely nothing and still bawling my eyes out every day. And so, you know, I'm like, we had just bought a house. So I'm like, how do I pay the mortgage? And, you know, we were in this flux of like, you know, I mean, we were eating out of the pantry most nights because we couldn't afford to do anything else. And so after coming through this, I was really taken on this journey of maybe I do need to look more into my business. So I was very fortunate that I was able to incorporate my business about a year prior to all of this happening. And through that, I was just doing, you know, little side projects, or, you know, like someone would say, hey, I need a marketing campaign. I'd be like, sure, I'll do it. Yeah. You know, so just little things. So when this happened, you know, I still had a few clients that I was working with, but I still felt like my role in life and my purpose in life was to climb the corporate ladder. It was to be a CMO somewhere, maybe a CEO, you know, whatever, and just climb the corporate ladder and be in a nice company, that type of thing.
Yeah. Now, did that come from external? Like from, like, parental pressure, or was that literally, like, an internal, like, desire?
Internal.
Yeah. Okay.
All internal.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just knew that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to change I'm going to change the world, you know? So that still is there. That passion is still there. And I thought going in that the only way I could make a difference was to be in this high level position so that I could implement and make changes. And so some of that, you know, like I said, during those few months, it was, how do I make a change when I can't even, like, change my clothes, you know? Like, that was the deep depression. And so it was this cycle of, okay, so I'm applying to this job. If I don't get it, then I'll do my business full time. Okay, well then, obviously I didn't do that. So then I was like, okay, this next job interview, if I don't get it, then I'll do my business full time. And then I still didn't trust my instincts, so I did it again. You know, so I was stuck in this cycle, and when you are in that cycle, it is difficult to hear any, like, you know, callings or signs or whatever you want to call it, where the universe is literally like, this is what you need to be doing. And I was missing all of that.
Yeah.
And so it finally got to, like, 3 or 4 months later, it finally got to the point where I was like, okay, I see you. I see you, but I'm too scared to make that leap. Because all the what ifs. What if I'm not good enough? What if I can't find clients? What if they don't like me? What if, all of those what ifs. And so I finally just had to break that notion, that mindset.
Yeah.
And just go for it. And just leap into it. And I was so fortunate that all of my clients really rallied behind me.
Yeah.
And they actually gave me more work during that time so that I could, boost their get more from them. Or that sounds terrible. So that, not so I could get more from them, but like, that they were willing to give me extra.
Yeah, give you some more business. And,
thank you.
I mean, they were in return getting something too, because you were providing them a service.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, it was so wonderful, that transition. And what was so interesting was when I was open about my story, the people that came to me and said, oh, I've had similar instances. And what really, really upsets me is that it was women to women. So it was a female boss doing this to a female, coworker. And to me, I'm like, we already have enough stuff we've got to worry about. Like, why are we degrading and bringing each other down in this setting?
Yeah.
And it's almost like we're grabbing for their position or grabbing for their status. And that's not the case at all. 9 times out of 10, we just want what they have, but differently.
Yeah.
It's like, I would love to have that salary or, that extra day off.
Yeah.
So it's just, I just feel like we need to really look into that more.
Yeah, I'm sure that there are a lot of women who have experienced similar things. And I mean, I know that I have. I've been in situations where I've had female bosses that are not the healthiest, and I've had to leave those situations for that same reason. And it's interesting because I don't know the exact details of everything that you walked through, but I know, for me personally, one that I went through, it wasn't until I was listening to a podcast about narcissism, it was related to relationships and being in a relationship with a narcissist, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is her.
Yeah.
And so, I think that sometimes that there are those same traits in the relationship between boss and employee that need the same type of examination as partnerships. Yeah. Just a different type of partnership. But
that was beautifully how you said that, because that I would relate to that so much. And I hadn't thought of that before. So, I mean, that is very spot on.
Yeah.
For that whole thing. And another thing that really irked me was that if she didn't give me credit for anything. So she came to me and asked me to write the company's marketing plan, and I did it. And then she was like, look what I've done. And I'm like, how that just, it tears down. There's only so much you can take. And the hard part was sitting back and watching it happen to my friends. And, there were 2 other people in my department. And it was really hard for me to watch them go through it, because I wanted to take on what they were experiencing. I wanted to be the one with tough skin so they didn't have to deal with it. So, I was like, if she has to focus on me, let her focus on me. But don't bring them into this.
Yeah.
And that was really difficult, to just not be able to speak up for somebody else, let alone myself, because Lord, I could have said so much stuff when I was sitting there in the room getting fired without an HR representative there.
Yeah.
And I should have, at that moment, I should have stopped, and I should have said, I need HR in here. I'm going to record this on my phone. Like, I should have done things to protect myself, but instead I felt so belittled that I couldn't stand up for myself. I couldn't do anything because I was so attacked.
You do. You feel a little bit like shaken.
Yes.
Like internally that it is hard unless you've had, if this happens, do 1, 2, 3. Unless you've had that ingrained into you over and over again, you don't think about it in those moments because you almost go into like I hate to say survival mode, but you almost feel like this self-preservation, like it's almost like shock.
But
like
you
just kind of freeze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think that's it's so important to realize that at the end of the day, we do have those instincts. And, I think that 9 times out of 10, at least for me back then, I avoided confrontation as at all costs.
Yes.
Because I thought it's not worth it for me to do this or say this or be outspoken or use my voice because it's not going to make a difference.
Right.
And I feel like that really is what held me down for so long was no matter what I say, no matter what I do, the company's going to pick her over me. And it's like this, this battle between who gets the win.
Right.
Who gets to keep their job.
Yeah.
Which is just absolutely mind-blowing that's even like a hint of the air.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
when you made that decision that, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to jump in. No doubt there were probably moments of doubt.
Absolutely.
And maybe thinking, maybe I shouldn't do this. What did you lean on? Like, what type of resources were available to you? Or maybe did you seek out? Like, what did you lean on?
A lot of it was my internal drive to not let it keep me down that much. And so I worked heavily with a therapist during that time.
Okay.
To really just get to the bottom of where this is really affecting me, but also how do I grow from this? So that was an awesome resource that I suggest to anybody, even if you don't feel like you need a therapist.
Yeah.
Like, they're amazing.
Yes.
And then I also had my amazing support system with my family and friends. And, the fact that I had my best friend, I met her through that company.
Okay.
And the fact that she was able to validate me and say, this is all crazy, like this is not, like you are getting, you're getting the short end of the stick, basically.
Yeah.
And she even met my replacement, and apparently she was like, girl, it's already starting all over again. And so I'm like, at what point do we realize that this isn't like gonna work? We can't stand for this.
Yeah.
But another way is I got really into reading different types of trauma. So in terms of like books, not like analyzing.
Yeah.
So I read a bunch of books, and actually one of my clients, she does a lot around women empowerment and trauma.
Okay.
And so I was able to hear stories from her and really gain a lot of knowledge on just different ways that you can really let it go. And that sounds so easy.
Sounds easy,
It sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But even to this day, I mean, it's been almost August will be 2 years, and it's still one of those things where it sometimes will keep me up at night, or I'll have flashbacks, or I'll be like, oh, I should have done this differently, or I should have said this, or maybe I should have done this instead, and it just doesn't help me now.
Right.
The only thing that it's doing is taking me back to those traumatic experiences. But I'm also at the stage now where I am healing to the point where I can acknowledge that thought and just say, thank you. Great to welcome you back, thought, memory. But we're gonna move on. We're not gonna have this continue. And that took so long.
Yeah.
That took so long to get to that point. Because it was like ingrained into me that especially if you get fired like that, you don't get fired.
Yeah.
Like, you do not get fired. So I actually hid that fact through a lot of these months because I was like, I don't want people to judge me because they're going to hear that I got fired and they're going to be like, whoa, maybe she deserved it, or maybe she did this, or maybe she did that. And I'm like, no, I literally had a boss stand over me while I packed my bags. Like, that, at the end of the day, is what it was. And so I'm very fortunate that I have gotten this mindset now of, like, oh, it's this fresh air. I get to work my own hours. I get to work with the clients I want to work with. And if something happens, I can hold up. This is not vibing with my healed self, you know? Like, and I can easily put an end to it. So there's something so empowering about having my own business and being able to say, this is what I want, and this is how I'm going to get there. And these are the things I'm not going to accept along the way.
Right.
You know?
Right. Now, do you remember the name of any of the books that you read?
So, actually, a lot of them were on Libby.
Okay.
Which Libby is an online app that connects to the library.
Okay.
So, it's all free. And you just put your library card in there. And so, I would literally look up, like, healing books or self-help books. And I would just, like, go through the list of what was available. Okay. That's my biggest recommendation, as well as podcasts. Like, I can't tell you how many podcasts I've listened to just about empowering yourself, lifting up your own voice.
Yes.
Because I feel like we just don't do that enough. And if you do, you are, like, society deems you as, like, you know, well, she's a she-boss, you know?
Yeah.
It's like a negative thing to have your voice.
Yes. And so the voice in particular, this podcast was a way of me learning how to find my voice. And so that's a whole nother story I won't get into, but yeah, finding your voice is so important. And the thing is, just because you find your voice doesn't mean it has to be a violent voice.
Yes.
It can be a soft voice. It can be just a voice of hope. But when you're silenced, then you lose all purpose. Yeah. I mean, I don't even want to say power, but I mean, it is our internal power, but we lose our purpose when we lose our voice. And so I feel like it's so important to have your voice.
Yeah, and what's so interesting is at that time, I did not realize that I was silenced. I thought I had my voice. I thought, I can talk to a crowd. I can talk to anybody. Like, obviously I have a voice.
Yeah.
And then I realized in that moment, I am sitting here taking this, and I'm letting this happen. And so I guess a lot of that internalizes guilt on top of the fact that I was dealing with this silence.
Yeah.
I felt guilty about being silent, but then I was like, I don't know what to do to find my voice.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I'm still on that journey. And actually, this is another way for me to share my story and use my voice and help others. And I think that this is something that we all have to finally be able to give ourselves the ability to say, this is my story, this is my voice, I will be heard. I'm going to be heard. And I hope that everyone gets that platform.
Yeah I agree. Everybody has a story.
Absolutely.
Everybody does. And I really appreciate you sharing your story with us. So tell me now what life is like for Rachel now. Obviously, nothing about life is perfect.
Absolutely.
But now you have a beautiful life, and you have a schedule that you get to say is yours, and you get to call the shots. Yeah. So what is it like for you right now? Like, how are you living your life beautifully?
Oh, I think it's been such a transition that I don't even know how to put it into words, but I'm going to. But I think the biggest thing for me is that I wake up every single day and I don't have to fear going into an office. Every single morning I was with that company, I dreaded going into the office. I loved what I do. I loved what I did. I did not want to be in that environment. And I was like, this is no way to live. This is no way So now every day I get to wake up, I go into my home office, my cats are hanging out with me on calls, and, my clients, like, they know my cats, even though they're, billions of miles away. Like, everybody knows who I am authentically. And I feel like that has been such an amazing shift from being in this place of, I'm not empowered. I don't feel empowered. I don't feel enough. To switching over to, people are coming to me for these needs, for their marketing and business needs. Like, people are coming to me. They're not going to, like, these big companies or firms or whatever. They're deciding to come to me. And so I take that responsibility to heart, and I really want them to feel like when they come to me, they are heard, and they are, because I know what it's like working with marketing firms. It's like, this is the only way to do it. This is how you're going to get results. So this is how we're going to do it. Whereas when I work with clients, I'm like, what do you want? Like, what do you envision this as?
Yeah.
And we'll go from there, because not everything has to be set in stone. Not everything has to be one way. And when you open that possibility up, the options are just unlimited. The creativity that comes out of that, when you have that ability to say, maybe this isn't going to work, but let's try this. Yeah. Or I always like to say that there's no bad ideas. There's only ideas we can brainstorm off of. And I'm telling you, that changes everything. It changes that dynamic of, I can go to this person, give them my ideas, and I'm not going to feel ridiculed. I'm not going to feel belittled. Yeah. But instead, I'm going to feel empowered because I was able to voice my opinion, voice my idea, and Rachel took it and ran with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think if we, as a society, got that together, got that worked out. I know, it's a big...
Yeah, that's a big one.
But that would be my dream, is that we just respect everybody. I think that's what it comes down to, honestly, is showing people the respect and dignity that they, that's their birthright.
Yeah. So you mentioned mindset. And I love mindset.
Yes.
So I call myself a mindset coach. I am ICF certified as a life and health coach, but love more of the life mindset side of that. And one of the things that I always ask my clients to do is to every single day to find something, 3 things in particular at least, that you're grateful for within the last 24 hours, because there's something beautiful about looking for like the small things, because we always kind of focus when you think about having a gratitude journal, it can seem daunting sometimes because you're like, how many big things, like you think you can only be grateful for like the big things. And when we can focus on like the little things too, it totally can shift our mindset without even realizing it. Like if you did that every single day, you're like, okay, now 24 hours back, like what are 3 things that I was grateful for? 3 things that I was grateful for. You begin to look for them like all throughout the day. Oh, that person let me in. Like I was about to, like, I didn't realize I needed to merge. I didn't realize the lane was ending and this person let me in. Like, and then you find gratitude in that. And you begin to look for those moments when you train your brain to do that. So I'm going to ask you, as I'm going to ask all of my guests, what are 3 things that you can think of in the last 24 hours that you are grateful for?
Well, first off, I'm grateful for being here and that you have opened this platform for so many to share their stories and to share their voices. So thank you for that.
Thank you. You're welcome.
I guess the second one would be I had a really great night's sleep. So that is definitely high up there. And then I think the third one would have to be my husband just supporting me through this, because he knows that this is my first time opening up and really talking about what some of the experiences that I've had. Yeah. And so just having him be supportive was really awesome.
That's amazing.
What 3 things are you grateful for?
Oh, I have not been asked that yet. So I am grateful for, first of all, my husband. And yes, I'm grateful for him every day, but specifically today, I can tell you, he packed our lunches, so I didn't have to think about that.
That's amazing.
So I had a really delicious sandwich and some beverages. Let's see, what else am I grateful for within the last 24 hours? Last night, after the conclusion of yesterday's recordings, we went to dinner. So I had a nice, quiet dinner. And then I came home to one of my daughters having a house full of her friends. And that is something that I'm very grateful for, because there was a time not too long ago where we had moved, so it was a new location, and she didn't have friends yet here, and it was a struggle watching her feel alone.
Yeah.
And so seeing her laugh with her friends is something I'm very grateful for.
Gotta bottle up that laughter.
I know.
Just hold on to it.
Yeah. And they're also teenage girls, so there's a little bit of laughter, there's a little bit of complaining about everybody and all of that. But yes, but hearing all of it, just knowing that she has people to connect with, it means so much as a mom.
But also that you're giving her that space to where she can have friends over.
Yeah.
Because I not to go into another trauma story, but fortunately I grew up in a hoarded house, like a hoarder's house. So I can only remember twice my friends ever being over. We were always going to somebody else's house. And so that really touches me very deeply, that your daughter is able to have that space, because it's so important, like whether or not you realize it, to have that space.
Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Cool.
Rachel, tell people where they can find you. Like if they need a marketing person, like you're their girl, where can they find you?
Bat signal me. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But also I wouldn't be upset about that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I do have my own marketing firm. It is JRW Consulting LLC, which is just my initials because I couldn't think of anything else.
Okay.
So you can find me online at jrwconsulting.org. Email me, Rachel at jrwconsulting. Look me up on Facebook. My goal is to get more visible in the community. So if you're in the Knoxville area, I'm going to try to go to more events, networking events, and that has been one way I'm trying to honor my voice, is to go and not be scared or nervous to go networking. So amazing.
So,
yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and I will put all of that in the show notes for anybody who would like to find Rachel. You can find all of her information in the show notes. And Rachel, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been awesome.
It's been amazing. Thank you.